You are now.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You are now tuned in to the FuseBox Radio Broadcast with DJ Fusion and John Judah.
You're as good as they say you are.
Syndicated worldwide to bring real black radio back to the masses.
All right, everybody, 1, 2, 1, 2. What's going on? You're now in tune to another session of the syndicated worldwide FuseBox Radio Broadcast, bringing the balance back to black radio each and every single week with a mix of tunes, old school and new, from the black diaspora, hip-hop, soul, funk, jazz, reggae, and more, as well as, talking a bit on some news and commentary and randomness that's going on in our lives. Even during a pandemic, the podcast ain't going to stop. So we're going to keep on keeping on. You got myself, DJ Fusion in the mix on the mix and talk ends, and on the side you got my co-host who does the same thing. We're going to have him socially distancing, introduce himself right now.
Yes, indeedy, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, indeedy. To all souls in this whole real wide world, much love. And, it's another day, really. You know what I'm saying? But don't let the bug bite you in the booty. The bug bites you in the booty, it will do ye. And don't let it bite you. Don't let it bite you in the booty. Or was it 5G in the booty?
Well,
but it's all
that's
good,
a hell of
y'all.
an interesting transition, but okay.
It's all good, y'all. We in the mix. We're trying to get it in. You know what I'm saying? And and of course we got the good music, solid mix action, and glad that we can give you some satisfaction. I'm glad that you had some attraction, and I know you get some gratification. Yes, indeed. FuseBox Nation. What's the deal, Fusion?
No doubt. We'll definitely get into some stuff in a minute, but, considering I'm personally doing okay, I'm healing up better, with the leg and, whatnot. I'm a weeble wobble with a cane right now, but, compared to where I was a few months back, this is like leaps and bounds of stuff.
Okay.
And now, ironically, the world's closed to a degree, so it's unique, but, I don't know. I strangely am semi-prepared with this, but I'll get into that in a moment. But overall, I'm cool. I mean, I'm glad that, people still have the blessings and privileges of having a household and, loved ones, friends, family, etc. At this time, and being able to thus far maintain, and that's going to be a big thing with all of this that's happening. And when after it happened, So, first and foremost, I just want to thank everybody for listening into the show. I'm sure people, if y'all have listened to like the past few joints, you've heard what happened to me health-wise and other stuff, and then, this COVID-19 coronavirus biz happened and all of that. So, for us to be able to still sit back and record and do shows and be able to do music in our respective places is a blessing. Most of the fact that, people are checking us out and, listening and whatnot. We still got, nice, download numbers and everything. So whether y'all are, in the mix of, still doing your regular thing 9 to 5 wise, if you're locked down in the crib or, whatever else, we deeply appreciate y'all taking out your time still to support us.
Yes, indeed.
Because while I'm a relative, I'm semi-introverted, so some of this type of thing doesn't affect me as much as it does my way more extroverted friends and family. I can see how not, being able to do certain parts of your routine fucks with you. So for you to still be to still incorporate us as a part of your routine, I highly appreciate it. You know what I mean? If we're a part of what makes you feel that things are still normal and that we'll get past this, I'm very cool with that. You know what I mean? So we'll do our best on our end to maintain with things on that end. Before we get into talking about some things, I just got to do the real quick promo spiel. Let's check out what's going on with the FuseBox Radio Broadcast family at our official website, FuseBoxRadio.com, FuseBoxRadio.com. BlackRadioIsBack.com is being revamped. Once some of this stuff kind of smooths out a bit, just because there's some things I want to invest in, but, you know, bills ain't stopped, even though a virus is here. Y'all will hopefully see that within the next month, but I'm very excited about, that finally launching out and coming into being. Events-wise, naturally, with the way things are right now, some of the spring, summer stuff is, going to be delayed, if not canceled. We'll announce things as they come along. I've been experimenting a lot with, a lot of the streaming, stuff. So, we've been talking behind the scenes, like, probably through, like, the, FuseBox, Facebook or Twitter page or whatever. We're gonna set up some electronic events. So, you know, y'all can, you know, see folks in the groove mixing and all that, and all that good stuff. I actually been testing it on my personal page. So, people have seen a portion of the, FuseBox Labs, which, I'm still in the mix of, slowly trying to rearrange, because again, I walk with the cane. But, it's kind of exciting seeing how some of this tech is and how it's been open and not so much depending on your level of fame. But, yeah, we're going to get some stuff, you know, done on that, and you can always check out the show or whatever podcast app that you tend to use, whether it's, you know, iHeartRadio, Castbox, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and so forth. And if you like what we do, I always say, give us a rating when you get a chance to, whether it's, you know, stars, mics, whatever. That helps us get into more people's ears and, expose us more to people in general. And also, that's the thing that if you, subscribe to the show via your podcast app of choice, a lot of these will say, fellow podcasts that people listen to on top of it. So, besides listening to us, you'll see what other folks listen to. And, it's a very cool thing because when I go through some of these apps myself, because I'm a heavy podcast listener, it's kind of cool seeing that, you know, fellow folks we've worked with for a while are like, you know, kind of in that same group of people's weekly listeners. And then like random shit where it's like people will like listen to us, but they'll listen to like, NPR's 1A too, or BBC. And it's like, okay, that's all good. Whatever works. You know what I mean?
Bring the folks. We bring the do.
Indeed, and all the social media is with FuseBox Radio. So Instagram.com/FuseBox Radio. Very soon with streaming, not yet, but very soon. Twitch.com/FuseBox Radio. Instagram.com/FuseBox Radio, so forth and so on. Facebook is on Facebook.com/FuseBox Radio Show. So that's about it. So you know we got to get that part in, and well, let's get to talking for a bit because I think everybody's using a ton of this tech right now. So we had to go through a few things to be able to try to record at this juncture from what we're used to using. But this should all be fine. I know everything is tested out, right? And I guess the first thing I just kind of want to get into is like how this is affecting people's personal lives. Like, you can get onto the news and see all the stuff that, you know, the various, you know, local, state, and national government entities and whatnot are saying, but, like, how people are dealing with stuff on the ground, I think is more my concern with coronavirus and COVID-19, because besides the illness and the virus itself, I think the big concern that some people are sleeping on is people being people.
Yeah.
In other words, I think you should be concerned and do your best to, you know, try to avoid certain things. But for me, especially as a Black American and a person who's a history dork, the thing about this situation is partially the virus, but partially how folks have always been treated when they had to deal with the illness and get sick with Black America. Black Americans have never been treated equally in terms of the realm of shit with health disparities. And when you have a situation like this, and granted, being in the DC metro area, like, we are semi-blessed of having a certain, structure in terms of healthcare and political things and whatnot, but even that is still imbalanced, you know what I mean? Like, when I look at my relatives who are like in small counties of like, you know, North Carolina, Georgia, et cetera, that are also, you know, economically disadvantaged or just straight up poor, you know, if they get hit, they're going to have a fucking problem. They're going to have a big problem if they go like one major regional hospital or something. And all of that type of thing. On top of the fact that, again, when you look at, you know, Black folks' health care, whether you want to get into the extremes of the straight up medical apartheid with people being experimented on and shit, to just people being treated poorly. Like, this, I think, needs to be the thing that folks focus on very, very hard, because there's a long-term historical pattern with it. Because, while we can talk about the Trump administration all day, and they need to be talked about, this has been going on for a minute. Like, this current situation is, the tumor that, existed long since the cancer has been in the body of the American, body politic and whatnot. And when you look at certain stuff like this, like, am I going to scream on a group of people who are congregating? Like, it's weird, because if you're in an urban area, people are on top of each other all the fucking time. It's a natural thing. Like, when people look at New York and stuff, and, you got some folks kind of talking about New York, I'm like, there's literally millions of people in the 5 boroughs. We're not even talking about New York State.
Yes. And it's not going to be the people who do that. Where I'm at, I mean, there's people doing that, and Popo see them doing that, so. It's not going to be enforced, like, in every situation. I don't think in every city the same way. And I think it's handled pretty well in D.C. I think thus far, you know what I'm saying, and I hope it continues to, because just to interject something real quick, like she was talking about the historical thing, because African Americans, people of color, particularly black folks, black people who look like they're black, whatever label we want to put on that. Wherever we was at, there was always some experimentation done on black bodies, because they needed black bodies, because they wanted to understand black bodies, while black bodies could do what they could do, and then still, and whatever. So they know how to weaponize stuff towards black bodies, and that's just not my opinion. I mean, the research is out there. I mean, some of this stuff is old, and this is just bringing me back to stuff that I had already looked into in the 90s. Because honestly, I kind of thought this was going to hit earlier. This is one of many reasons. One of less than 10, but one of many reasons that I didn't have kids, because I thought this was going to happen sooner. I was like, cats who are like our elk, who think like us. There was this thing of like, well, you're not really a regular person no more. You actualize this black man thing almost like a slave does, where you're constantly a runaway slave, where you're constantly looking over your shoulder about people trying to whatever to do something with your black body. You know what I'm saying? And and so that was, obviously metaphorically and not literally when I'm saying this. But in other words, there was this constant thing, and until you ran into the right, woman, then that wasn't going to be the thing that you were going to focus on. And in some ways, it whatever. But people who think like us, we were thinking like, this is whatever. It turned out to be a little longer, whatever. So I was, my lifestyle was geared toward that already. I mean, I can be multi-people. I can be all types of niggas plus one. But, when, it helps me when I'm dealing with just other things in general. You know what I'm saying? It's like you almost have to be dead to certain things, because most things are not there to love you. They're there to vampire you. Most person, places, and things, even places do it. Places can vampire a spirit. It didn't have to be, it could have been, something bad happened, or like the movie Poltergeist, something bad happened in this locale. And it could just be a whole area. Besides people casting spells on people, and which is something that's been going on for a while. And on top of, and also, but getting further into this, is just the aspect of electronic diseases. Now, we haven't really been 20 years deep into cell phones, laptops, and all these iPads and all this stuff. So we don't really know the really true effect it's going to be on our body. No one really knows that yet. Maybe I'm wrong about whatever, but we haven't gone through like TV. With TV, we went through a long time of dealing with TV, but we haven't had that with laptops and cell phones. So we don't know the effect of the radiation, and it's proven that there's radiation that comes from this. It's just not my opinion. That's the research is in, especially if you look in on the internet. And I don't have my notes with me because I wrote down a couple of pages of information based upon the people who were talking about. I know there's something at Tel Aviv University on YouTube. It's Tavod, Tauvod, and it's this lady talking about the effects of 5G, and just there's a range in the sense of what 5G represents, and this range, there's a specific range, and what's funny is that it makes cell phones really the highest, the biggest emitter of this, these type of energies, more than laptops, more than iPads or whatever, and ironically, cell phones is one we have around us the most. But in the end of the day, whether Corona is affected or because of 5G, to me, it doesn't really matter. It matters, but in the sense of this new technology is going to have a bad effect on us, period. So if it's virus related, then it's virus related. But if it's not, then that means there's something else that take control on our system. The research is in. What's funny is that not a lot of research has been done by the companies on 5G. It's mostly been done by independent people. So it's like almost they don't really want to know what is going to happen because they know there's a problem, or Samsung saying something, like, well, we're not whatever, liable or something, whatever. I remember some phone I got because when I was starting to get hip to the electronic disease stuff, I was reading more. I'm like, okay then. So at the end of the day, it was like either you wasn't going to have one or you was. And if you was, you had to protect yourself and knew what to put in your body. Because really it's almost coming down to people who are taking care of themselves and put the right things in their body before this hit. And then it's whatever, because I don't think it's completely the electronic disease thing. I think it's mixed in with it, that there probably is something there, but I think it's going to affect people who have bad systems, whose body matrix is down based upon what they did not do with it. And, I take it from there, you know what I'm saying? Some people are just used to going out, and because they spend all this time and hustle and ambition getting some money and whatever, some of these people have to sit on their ass. And part of getting that money was so you can be out and splurge and go do things when you have to be, now we have to be Buddha. Some of us already was, but in the sense of it being less and not more, in the sense of less time out, less different attentions for you to focus on. More about your inside of your crib or just the immediate family or people, whatever. I'm pretty sure people are doing more than people can be seen, and I think that should be expected. Okay, whatever. Okay, I'm going to go get something. And they all meet up at so-and-so house. People going to do that. People might be widespread apart. It's whatever. And, at the end of the day, it's going to be about the God within me that the lower portion of which is my soul, spirit nature of the Most High. It's going to be all right if I vibrate in the way I'm supposed to vibrate and put in and take care of the temple, like they used to say when I was a kid. Your body is a temple. You know what I'm saying? Just take care. I remember old black women saying that to me when I was a kid. And at the end of the day, there's good and evil. Like the Bible talked about plagues fucking with people. So, you know what I'm saying? And it's not even, that's just, so the Bible talks about plagues, you know what I'm saying? So this is, and even in that scenario, it was about the people who was right, who didn't get messed up by the people, whatever. So there's the morale vibration that comes into question, particularly with spiritual or spiritual or occult-minded people, because in the way it was for our people, You know, God was a part of everything. So God didn't come up when bad times came. God was there when there was good times. So we made better decisions, which is, our people ain't making the best decisions, on just shit in general. So that's a whole other thing. But anyway, I didn't want to talk too long, but I just wanted to get out some of the aspects because, I think, just do the basic things. I mean, I definitely think, the mask and the gloves for the sake of unknown, you know what I'm saying, for people who are still having to work like myself or people who are out, you know what I'm saying, people ain't being shook now. I'm like, the Most High got this. And if I gotta go compared to these dirtbags that's out here, then I gotta go. And not feeling any certain type of way because at the end of the day, I mean, if I would have gone before I knew what I knew now, it would have been worse, but I know what I know now, so going isn't as bad. But then at the same time, me saying that is kind of slightly cheaping it because I ain't going nowhere. Whether my physical body goes, but my physical body ain't going nowhere. It ain't time yet, and I think the same applies to Fusion. All right?
Definitely thanks for, dropping that, bit of info and thoughts, cause I'm definitely on the plane of, you gotta live your life fully and whatever regardless. At the same time, I don't want this bitch bullshit to take me out because other motherfuckers are being stupid. You know what I mean? I literally had part of a car sliced through my fucking leg about 5 months ago. So, if, some Bama, is willfully choosing, I'm talking about people who are willfully doing things, who have certain, privileges and blessings. Those are the cats when I, rant are getting on my fucking nerves. Where, like, when you see these people doing these, like, little rallies and shit talking about, we, gotta get the economy back and own the libs and shit. I'm just saying, like, have you ever not been able to breathe properly before? It's some bullshit. I have. You know what I mean? Do you know that eventually every hospital does not have unlimited beds and people take care of your ass? And that's in the best of situations. You know what I mean? Because guess what? We all aren't 2 or 3 checks away from being a fucking millionaire. You know what I mean? Most of us are just getting the fuck by, and that's not a diss towards people. That's fucking fine. But when you see some of these folks being reckless, like stupidly, like when they had like this cat hold like a fucking bonfire party like about an hour away from where I reside about a month or so ago. These will be the same motherfuckers crying when they got to be able to get the ventilator. Yeah. You know what I mean? Talking about what I did with my life. Well, if they aren't worried, matching everything, because when
there was a preacher, I just want to say this, was a preacher in Virginia. Just give me this second. This preacher in Virginia who said, well, I got to go out and preach whatever. And the Negro died two, 3 days later. So, and
I was going to bring that up.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's that thing of like, there's many avenues you can look. They could have been like, yo, you tried to go against the state so we can fuck with you. Because they can't tinker with shit. They can't give false positives. I mean, black people in America should not think for a second that their false positives ain't going to be given. That's not something that they should think that, whatever. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so that's all I was going to say.
Well, you can look at things in 2 ways of all this type of stuff, right? If you want to look at the aspect of this is the thing that's fucking with you, then why would you tip shit to fuck with you? You know what I mean? Because I guess because the way I think or whatever, I'm like, I think there's natural stuff that people are going to unfortunately have to expect because, again, people are going to be people. If you think that people aren't going to be experimented on or whatever, I think that's foolish. At the same time, I think that some people don't like the aspect of sometimes just not knowing shit. In other words, they care more about being self-righteous than right. You know what I mean? Yeah. That cat in Virginia, to me, I'm just here like, nobody said you had to worship in a fucking church at this time. You can worship at home. Nobody said that you can't worship at home. You know what I mean? And because there's shit that we don't know about, if that's the main thing that's, if that's the main thing that's fucking with you, you couldn't give that up for like a week. You couldn't like do your service, via the internet, you had to kind of tempt fate and, you know, kind of be an ass about it. And sometimes the universe gives you signs on that level too. You know what I mean? So while I'm not trying to say that, you know, you got to be, you know, locked down and scared and shit or whatever, you also shouldn't tempt fate and be fucking dumb. Because some of this shit is honestly people who, again, have the privilege to not do certain things being dumb. I mean, I'm eventually had to go back out into the world probably for the next few weeks. And when I'm sort of like, you know, going to work and doing other stuff, I'm going to still wash my fucking hands. I'm going to have my sanitizer. I'm going to have my mask. And I know whatever the universe brings to me is going to bring to me. But I'm not trying to tempt death into coming to me. Not for this. Maybe for some other shit. But not for this. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to have shit that I bring to my older relatives who are still alive right now, including my mama and aunt who are around this way. By, you know, kind of being on some foolish shit in terms of like, you know, little stuff that one can do. Because when you look at all of this type of thing, because for me, maybe I have to take it a different way because I also know people who are actual nurses and physician assistants and stuff. When shit was starting to pop off early, people were saying something ain't right. Like, we can look at the government and other people and be there like, you know, people can obviously have their own means of how they're going to try to manipulate this shit regardless. But if nurse so-and-so is like doing 10 to 12 hour shifts on the regular in the ER, and they're telling me some breathing shit is popping off and that shit is bugged out, y'all might want to, you know, kind of hold it down a little bit. I'm going to hold it down a little bit because of what they said. You know what I mean? Because that's their job. That's their living. That's like how anybody else does a 9 to 5. You know what I mean? It just happens to have shit that involves, you know, like all types of, you know, blood and fluids and other types of shit. So in all honesty, until those frontline people tell me shit's calming down, I'm going to just be as cautious as possible, but I'm still, you know, A, not going to be completely scared, and B, I still got to look out for what other people are going to do, because as we've seen in this country, much less other countries, people are going to use this illness to try to take advantage of people of other classes, whether you want to talk about race, class, ethnicity, etc., right? Even in China, that what cats are doing over there. You know what I'm saying? And with the history of America, and being an American is still, you know, being here, like, you know, I don't have the money, rights, or whatever to, like, go to fuck somewhere else. I gotta be here. So I gotta do this shit in the best way a motherfucker can. You know what I'm saying? So when we look at all this type of stuff and we're just seeing, you know, how people are being treated during this time, like, I don't care what your spiritual belief system is or ethical belief system is. If you can't learn after a month that a lot of this shit, in terms of how society is wrong, I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? Because if nothing else, that should be the big side of all of this. Like, if a bunch of your shit can fall apart in about a month, something ain't right. Yeah. You aren't making enough money if you go a check or 2 checks away and your shit is fucked. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If you don't got health care, you are fucked. And there's a bunch of people who have that situation going on right now because of layoffs or, you know, being fired or because businesses closing. Hell, if you're one of these people who are on the front of the medical end, whether you talk about somebody who's doing custodial biz to the highest doctor, if people are trying to protect those people who are going to be the ones who are going to try to get you well properly in regards to things like, you know, PPE, pay, et cetera, or are more worried about the PR factor of things than the actual people factor of things. That's a fucking problem. You know, like, folks have to look at this type of thing really, really hard, and for all those people who, you know, they got kind of on this weird tip where I'm like, if you worked a quote-unquote essential job back in the day, you were this. Now those essential motherfuckers are finally looking essential like a bunch of labor people and other people have been fucking saying. Maybe you should treat people right all the fucking time. Because while this shit, you know, has its inconveniences or whatever, you know how worse it could be if the fucking grocery store wasn't open? If people weren't cleaning shit? If various parts of public transportation were popping off, hell, even these restaurants and everything that could be a brief distraction weren't open. But these were the same cats that, you know, not even a month or two ago, folks were just like, why don't niggas need $15 or above? You know, like, this is a time that the world has already changed. I don't think it's going to be this way forever. You know, I think it's going to be like how other things go through. You're going to get back to, you know, having big events and being able to do other stuff or whatever, but the lessons that people are learning right now, I hope that more people it applies to, because some people are going to ignore it. You know, and I'm not talking about just like rich people or whatever. I'm talking about regular motherfuckers who don't want to admit that the entire way they look at the world is wrong.
Yep.
Because that shit is hard. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be like, you know, too harsh to some people about it. I mean, we all grew up in the same societies that had to deal with different levels of bullshit. Like some of us just were able to get out of it due to family, friends, and, you know, different modes of education or whatever. But some people are just going to hold on to it to the end. Like, you got some people that say like, oh, that means Trump's going to be voted out. No, I don't. I don't believe that shit at all. And it's because, not because people don't see shit that's happening, it's because they don't want to react to what's happening. We gotta remember in the realm of history, it's usually a small group of people that makes big change.
Yeah.
And with this type of thing, some people, you know, that's why I kind of like get a little annoyed at the conspiracy, because I'm just saying like, there's real shit that's happening, but sometimes like, you don't gotta make up shit. You don't gotta make up shit in terms of if you die, here's the reason why you died. You know? This type of thing has,
I agree with that.
You know, this type of thing has been going on. I don't gotta scream at Bill Gates and be like, well, they're trying to make a virus, you know, vaccine to, you know, put a chip and shit in you. We all carry cell phones. If somebody wants to trace your ass, they're gonna trace you. You know?
Yeah.
Like, we don't gotta get, you know, extreme with stuff. Like, Bill Gates could I was actually talking to one of my homegirls, via text earlier. I'm talking to my homegirl, Natalie. And, I'm just here like, Bill Gates is a villain. It doesn't necessarily have to be because of this shit. That motherfucker's a billionaire who's exploited workers and other people. That's why they're a fucking billionaire. Billionaires don't become billionaires because they're nice.
Yep.
You know, let's keep it 100. Now, there's some people who are less assholes than others, but no billionaire is like the kindest motherfucker on the planet.
He's definitely a connected person. So he's connected on the Nazi level. He, you know, like in league with, you know, that eugenics or, you know, or that, wanting to affect populations. And, cause there was something I had read, there was something about he was behind something, a vaccine that had caused sterilization and, blindness. So, you know, they have to front like they didn't know what was going to happen before it happened. But everybody, see, that's the thing that's beautiful about knowing your history is that they expect people not to know. That's what's big about entertainment and bullshit and Instagram, and they put all that shit out there to make you think about now. And you're supposed to think about now. But you're supposed to think about now as it relates into the whole circle of time. Because when the circle of time, it means now is future, present, and past. You know, and so it gives you like whatever. And in relation to that, you know, there was a person, you know, in the early part of the century there were other people who were involved in that same type of thing. You know, we're in more of a technological age, so people can be about that, but still do something in another area. Well, he's big in computers, so you wouldn't necessarily know he was big into this. You know, they're diversified, so you don't. They could be helping people on one end, but at the same time wanting to sterilize people on another end. So you don't really know, man. Go ahead.
Well, I guess my thing is like a lot of shit is complicated. You know what I mean? Like people don't like complications. Like when we get into all of this, you know, it could be A, B, C, D, or E. I'm just here like it could be a mix of both, or it could just be some shit that motherfuckers ain't encounter and they just want to have the easiest answer as fast as possible. And because we're in a technological age, I think for some it's easy to be there like, oh, I ain't like this motherfucker anyway, so I'm gonna tie this in to this end and, you know, put the motherfucker in the blender. Because we also got to remember too, while there are some people who, whether I agree with certain or not, they may have quality intent. There's a bunch of cats who just want advertising revenue off of the shit they're saying. In other words, they're saying this shit because it makes money. They'll say some new shit tomorrow if some new shit comes up. You know what I mean? Like,
no doubt. I mean, and that's why, like, me as a researcher, I've been researching before 2017, which is when I really started to really do research on the web after buying a laptop. I could have bought one before then, but I just didn't want to because I was, for that reason, because of the electronic disease aspect that could come from that. And so, and in my research before then, I knew that Bill Gates was not only just a computer guy; he was connected on other levels. So that doesn't apply to people on this platform because we're researchers. We're researchers before there was that. And the thing is, a lot of stuff on the web is the only quick stuff to me, print stuff is stuff you don't have to read. You know what I'm saying? And so, and a lot of that stuff is sometimes it's books in word form. So, but, you know, individuals should basically, you know, just like the lecturers and researchers that came before me, when I first came and engaged with them, I wasn't the researcher yet, and I was amazed by their ability to weave all this information together. You know what I'm saying? You know, at the end of the day, people shouldn't live in paranoia. You know, they should have, you know, solid information to go off of, you know, and to base any type of whatever about. You know, that's just period in life, you know, let alone something, you know, that, you know, people of color. And just, see, now we're in the era where it ain't just going to be people of color, it's going to be people in general. Because, you know, you know, as some legends say, they want to get rid of 80% of the population. That means some white folk going to be going. So that don't mean some going to be black. So I mean, so it has to be that way. You know, look at the numbers that were in Italy, you know, northern Italy. So and also it looks better if it's not just black. If it's just black from the gate, it looks different. So another scheme would be some whites would have to die, so it wouldn't look like just a black thing. You know what I'm saying? So it depends on, you know, whichever way it goes. You know what I'm saying? You know, because you know, black people just didn't have Tuskegee. There was many Tuskegees before that and after that, and that's in the book Medical Apartheid. I think it's Marietta Washington. I know her last name is Washington, but it's Medical Apartheid. So, you know, we've had things, people of color, African Americans, and people, black people across the globe, but in a sense specifically African Americans, that were related to COVID in the sense of people having to change and do certain things. And also it's almost related to slavery aspects when we had to watch our movements. We couldn't go or be certain places. Kind of reminiscent of that. Not in the harsh critical way of slavery, of course. Not in the harsh critical way. It killed or set back, but in the sense of we're having to almost the prison guards are walking around like, well, you can't go here, you know. But yeah.
Well, here's the bugged out thing about all of this type of stuff, right? I think this is why I'm just here, like, we don't got to create new shit to just look at current things, because while, you know, we're in a different area too. I always had to like put that reminder here because I had to be there, like the Midwest and South and West Coast are going to be naturally different on certain ways things flow and function. And we're also in a relatively, for America, multicultural area next to actually the New York metro area that's getting hit very hard with all of this. It's the aspect of eventually everybody's going to want to make their funds back again and do other things. And guess who is the big labor force in this country still? It's always been American minorities, especially black folks. So when we look at how all of this type of stuff is going to be, like, right now, because things are relatively fresh, people aren't putting the boot on certain folks yet, but that's why they're like certain things, why would you possibly tempt them? Why would you put yourself in the situation to be one of those bodies that somebody might fuck with in a hospital? Why would you be in that situation where, guess what, private prisons still need to have bodies, and it ain't like people aren't getting arrested or whatever. Why put yourself in a situation to get to these points with something when you already know that you're going to probably get a lesser level of care when stuff goes down if you're not, you know, I guess, quote unquote, upper middle class or whatever, or you happen to live in the area that has a functioning healthcare system. And even in those places, you know, they're getting slammed by various folks because, you know, at the moment, I know everybody has been saying that, this has so far affected people the most who have autoimmune situations and or older folks. But, you know, it's not like nobody else is getting hit, too. Like, Spanish flu didn't just hit old people and they all died, because that's a big thing that people like to reference historically in terms of a worldwide scenario that was relatively recent. For black folks and minority folks in general, like, some of us are going to have to do what we got to do. It's always been that way, always will be that way. When things, quote unquote, reopen up, people are going to still have to do stuff. Man, I just want folks to be careful because you already see that people are going to start blaming the spread of this on those who are out and about. And when we talk about urban areas of people being out and about, it's not necessarily because people are being social or fucking around, it's because they have to. You've got to go to work. You know what I'm saying? You got to put food on the table. You got to eat. we're at that stage where people are trying to brand blame for this virus. And, we see the big geopolitical thing happening, but in terms of on the ground, when people always want to be like who's, a patient zero or, the community that's making things worse, it always tends to land on those who are of non-European descent in this country. You know what I mean? So I just would like for it to not be that way. It's probably going to end up being that way, honestly, because I don't know if you saw the stories that have come out of China, where like some parts of China are going through, I guess, like their second wave of it or whatever. But there are certain places that are trying to blame it on the African laborers.
Yeah, I heard about that. I did hear about that.
Yeah, who are over there. You know what I mean?
Hopefully they're not. They're not just trying to push them around and kill. It's like in the end, it's probably going to be hard for them to leave. It's almost better for them to leave than for them to, almost force them into a confrontational situation with them. Where really, in the end, they just will kill them and use their body parts. So I'm not surprised that that's happening in mainland China. You know what I mean?
And then, you had the aspect of, people have always looked at black labor on the majority and as being something that's disposable, right? We just toss it to the side. And this gets bigger on a huger level because it's not just what's happening in China with those particular laborers. I think I saw somewhere it says like one of the co-owners of the Atlanta Black Star and some of the other leaders of African nations are trying to get some of the people out of there if they wanted to choose to be out, which, that does get executed, that's cool or whatever. But what you gotta look at on a big geopolitical level is the fact of, we got a new neo-colonialist thing going on with Africa.
Yeah, no.
Where you got the war between China and, quote unquote, the Western nations or whatever, in terms of trying to, get up in there, more for various resources and things. And resources, we always forget, always have included people.
Yeah.
But when like the thing with this virus, whether it's come from nature or a lab or whatever the fuck, is nobody wants to take responsibility for shit in the bed until they're taking care of their people, right?
Yeah.
When we look at the situation with China, you had, a doctor who, I remember like right around the end of, last year, beginning of this year, was talking about, something's weird's going on with these symptoms that people have and that's coming up. They tried to shut that dude up and then that dude later on ended up dying of a disease. You know what I mean? So you got different countries who are kind of trying to, pass the buck in terms of, oh, well, if so-and-so told me this and so-and-so did that or whatever. And I think there is a level of validity to it. However, what people got to look at right now is like, what are people doing right now to protect folks right now? And when you look at stuff, like, it varies to extremes. I think we're in a relatively blessed area, and even in the more hard-hit areas, we still know lots of family and friends in New York and New Jersey and Connecticut and all of that. Yeah. There are some leaders who are just simply more competent than others in terms of at least trying to handle it. And this is some new shit. I'm not expecting everybody to be able to have it all locked down dumb quick or whatever. But then look at some other places and just feel like, if you want to meet Jesus, that's cool. I ain't trying to meet Jesus right now. Because y'all are fucking around.
That some of my closest peoples, including Mary, that, are not really sweating it. I mean, the people who aren't sweating it the most are the cats I came up with before I met Mary. And like my brother, for example, I love the fact that I have a family member that is seeing it, independent of my own research and my own insight, it's just his own. And, because that's what we spoke with him, and, he works in the area that's going to be unaffected by that. And, so, he's from Harlem originally, you know what I'm saying? And, one of the more mentally tough persons I've ever met in my life. And so, but yeah, and I can see that where it would be better to, like the old black folks have always said, it's going to be all right. This is a bump on the road compared to what Negroes have gone through in this country. Just the way what we're doing now, this ain't shit compared to what black folks have gone through in America or in other countries under colonialism. You know what I'm saying?
Doubt.
Oh, yeah, I've mentioned real quick. There was a book that came out in 1981 by Dean Koontz, that novelist. He wrote a book called Eyes of Darkness. So this is for those people who say I'm reaching. And this book came out in 1981. He said that a virus would come out of Wuhan. It was in story form, but he said a virus would come out of Wuhan in 2020. Okay, let's say it's coincidence. That's a good motherfucker coincidence, right? That's a juicy motherfucker. Call it whatever. But and the only reason why I'm even saying it like that is that's why it'd have been better to have been living a certain life, because they plan way in advance. You know, this is a test run, really. And I think they know most people will fall in step. Will fall in line to what really they're preaching, even if it's a lot. So the bottom line is we have to do certain things, I believe, but we can't. The sad reality is that we can't necessarily trust what they're saying, particularly black folks. And white folks start to become more and more nigga-like too, because you know they're gonna piss them over too, particularly for white. And of course, if they piss over for white, any other minority is in the mix. You know. So, you know, it's, you know, we don't, you know, I mean, in the end, I almost don't even want to talk about it no more, because it's like, you know, there's so much stuff, research, especially on we're internet-oriented society. All you guys do is go on the net and look up some stuff, you know what I'm saying? And they can give you other places where you can get maybe paperwork or books or periodicals where you could just find out just about your immune system, you know, viruses or, you know, or anything related to, you know, how it affects the body, or, you know, can certain electrical diseases give symptoms that mirror symptoms of a virus, like in a sense of messing with your respiration, you know, and are you being a diabetic or having a lot of sugar in your diet? Is that something that weakens your system to the point where it allows electrical diseases to fuck with you, and or viruses get fed off starch and sugar. So, you know, it's you know, and I'm already, you know, trying to cut all certain things out of my diet. It's like I'm simultaneously trying to do. I mean, that's what's happening before it hit, and that's what I said before, that for some of us, there's not a lot of people that are thinking of how we're thinking. You know, and in the sense of the mode we choose to adapt to deal with just being black in America, not only being black in America, but dealing with this situation, being black and being a transplant, being somewhere I'm not from, you know, and a lot comes with that. You know what I'm saying? So, and what I have learned from is that there's really no solidarity amongst black people. There's ceremony, but there's no solidarity. And because you'd be like, if there's solidarity, why when people from up north go down south, a lot of there's instances of violence and murder? You know, especially people who are not in the drug game, who are just coming down because, you know, the black body is more adapted to country or southern living. There's no doubt about that, in a sense, because we come from grasslands. You know, we come from grasslands before we come from jungles, and that's a misunderstood thing. So, that's a natural thing. It's just the way the culture evolved in the North. You know, which is what hip jazz became what it was after it became international after it came to New York. Hip hop came from there. You know, the theater aspect is kind of, we know it, had a flowering there, communication capital, financial capital. So, and the black people who were there were kind of just benefited from that. But that kind of swerved a little bit. But, you know, and just living in this world, you know, I mean, COVID is, you know, it's like, I'm more thinking about how people are going to respond off insecurities, based off their own insecurities about what they hear that somebody on the TV say, and then what's the next thing coming down the pipe, because certain things are coming, and also it's not just all the bad things, you know, as time goes on, there's different cycles of time, and they represent different things for different people, and then, you know, you can only think good, you can only think positive, that's the only really, I mean, that's not the only thing you do. But in the sense of, that's the only mental frame that is. Like, you know what I'm saying? You go through the motions, and it's just like, you know, I don't go to movies because they say to, not because I believe what the fuck they're saying. You know what I'm saying? So it's just more of that thing. It's like, I'm turned off from within naturally before they even tell me what to do. You know what I'm saying? So I'm in line with the life force. And it's what it is.
I mean, and I'm just going to be quick with this, because I think it's kind of good to just have that chunk of talk, and then it'll just be like random a face or whatever. The solidarity thing is going to be huge. When this, it should have always been, but especially at this time, it's going to be a very big thing. Because one of the things, because, you know, like, I've been home a lot or whatever, is being on social media, the lack of just giving a fuck about other people. It's not something I've already been unaware of. I mean, I'm 41. I've been through a lot of shit, you know what I mean, in my particular life cycle. It's that when you look at something like this, and you still got niggas who think it's cool to stunt on people because they got more than the next man, or they got the privilege to be able to work from home, or maybe have always done so, or, you know, got a certain amount of bread or whatever else, or they're telling other motherfuckers how to spend a stimulus check or whatever. It's like, yo, like, I'm not an evil broad, okay? He's probably dirty. I don't wish evil upon you. That being said, if some whack shit happened to you, I'm not going to cry about it. You know what I mean? Like, out of all the times in the world, being classist right now is not the wave. You know what I'm saying? Because as we talked about beforehand, if you get in the hospital, they're not gonna be, you know, they're not gonna be right off the top like, oh, I see from your, you know, your W-2 you made plus bread, I'm gonna take care of you. Because guess what? Nobody has that bread. Maybe 98% of the population does not have that level of bread. So you could be a piece of A shit, they're gonna give you the best health care in the world. You know, or if you're a good person and you got bread. We still have a society that looks at you in terms of, you know, in a pandemic, people sometimes are going to get even more harsh in terms of their various isms, racism, classism, you know, sexism, so forth and so on. So to see people right now, especially when, you know, like I mentioned beforehand, in terms of like the people who are actually making this shit remotely function, because this is probably the best time to have this type of shit happen. You know, if the worst thing you can bitch about is I got to be at home and watch Netflix and Hulu, guess what? You're living a very privileged fucking life. You kind of need to just settle the fuck down about that. You're going to be able to go to the bar and do other shit soon. I understand everybody has routines and all that, but if that's the worst shit that you can complain about, like in other words, you have a safe home to go to and to be at, you're not dealing with like a domestic violence situation or whatever else, then to a degree, I kind of need you to shut the fuck up. Because those folks have issues. You know what I mean? People who have, you know, stressful family situations that might be beat on or whatever else, and maybe going to work or the job with a time frame where they weren't around that shit, or kids who had to deal with certain shit or whatever. That's a thing. You know, all this other type of stuff. Dog, if you can't deal with this, if things get worse, because it's going to be a worse before it gets better, period, you're going to have a huge problem. And when I talk about people being people, I'm worried about those people. Because those are the people who are going to be more likely than not to sell you out. Because as we've seen through this, you know, people who have already been cool or whatever, and they trying their best to help out their communities or whatever, whether it's, you know, neighbors, mutual aid, donations, helping make these masks stuff, because again, people are shitting on the healthcare. People are going to end up taking care of your ass or whatever on a grand scale. Like, those folks who are always going to be cool. Those other ones aren't. And I think people are going to have to learn they're going to learn some harsh lessons about people they know about right now and whatnot. And it's not from you forcing the information out or whatever. It's some stuff that people are saying in the social media age. While technology is definitely a double-edged sword, if you are consistently saying or doing dumb shit, you're that person. Because nobody is forcing you to put your hands on that keyboard, electronic, laptop or whatever, to type out a whole bunch of crazy shit and a whole bunch of whatever. Because for some people, because I have seen the classism thing happen, where it's like, well, if you're at home or whatever, you should use this time to learn a trade or whatever. It's like, maybe you don't got the money to learn a fucking trade. Maybe you're just trying to live. How about just let motherfuckers live? It's not bad to live a normal, decent life. A bunch of us, especially in our communities, you know, most of us have had family members who are still breathing to this day who went through way worse shit than we did. Yep. You know. So, to not be grateful for that, much less what might be your current situation, like, that's the big thing that's really working my fucking nerves, because I expect the government to not be shit. For the majority of the time, you know. I expect certain systemic things to not be cool. However, you know, if things get worse, come to worse, you're going to probably have to worry about hitting somebody upside the head with a bat around wherever you live than, you know, a soldier coming into your way. You had to worry about somebody maybe trying to sit on you or make up some shit who lives around where you're at than, you know, some FBI spy coming in and trying to get tight with you. Not saying that all the other stuff doesn't happen, but again, as a history person, when you look at how certain things go down, it's usually people who are around your various circles. So, even without the fear of disease, you should want to have your circle be tight. With the fear of disease, especially, you know, Yeah, maybe you need to look at that side piece or whoever you're fucking or getting laid with a little more careful, because I don't want that shit to be the reason why my ass can't breathe funny. I'm in a hospital. You know, like certain things, there's got to be reinforced a little more with self-care and solidarity, you know what I mean? And these next few months are going to be extremely fascinating in regards to, you know, seeing how, you know, that kind of stuff goes down, especially when, you know, certain police actions are going to start getting back and forth again, because it's going to happen. For people to think it's not going to happen is foolish, especially if they, let's say these medical numbers go up. The certain things that might not be getting shut down right now are going to definitely get shut down later on. So why feed into it? Or even just think about the people you're hanging with. If they're bad people to party with motherfuckers you might not even like, and then put the shit on YouTube or whatever. Like, I think some cat around the Midwest somewhere did some shit where they were like, half the party just they're like, yeah, well, you know, fuck Corona, this, that, and the third. They were like, mad niggas. And I'm like, and then you put it on YouTube, and then you're surprised you got arrested. You made yourself an example of some shit.
No doubt.
You put in a system that you already know doesn't like you existing, making certain shit easier. So if people have bad intent, but I think there's some government people who have decent intent with this right now, but there's some who don't. For those who don't have good intent, you're making shit easier for them to make things more of a police state. You know, like, you know, like the virus is one level of things. People are going to be the other level. And I just think in general, at the end of the day, you know, care about other people, you know, care about yourself, do other stuff. Cause, you know, I got family members I want to see again who are still young and got issues, you know. Like, I know people who have babies coming soon. I can't imagine how that shit's going to be if the hospital is still locked down. Like, you can't, you know, barely even have your loved ones in while you're about to have a baby. You know, all that type of thing. Little stuff like that should make a difference. And even if you want to be selfish, think about if your ass is sick. Don't you want it to be somewhat structured if you get sick? Cause, you know, I hate to be this person. If it's going to be between me and an older person, you know what I mean? I'm going to want everybody to be good, but I'm going to want you to be good. You know? I'm going to want to have the same accent that somebody else might have. And I think that's, you know, I don't think that's selfish. I think that's self-preservation. You should care about certain things for the realm of self-preservation because, you know, I don't want to be a lab rat and not make that decision on my own. Let me put it like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want, you know, some dirty bastard, you know, when, you know, my mom wants to run to the store or whatever, pass some shit on to her because they wanted to be sedity and do some stupid corny shit or whatever. Like, I'm blessed to have a mom that's, you know, pretty fucking healthy right now, but, you know, on certain levels, I already know acquaintances and family friends who, while none of them have died, well, actually, one of my mom's acquaintances had died, but they were already very old. But there are people who have already dealt with certain situations with said virus, and, you know, they all weren't, you know, necessarily all jacked up before the situation happened. You know what I mean? And maybe for some, it's gonna have to take somebody dying for them to realize that shit is real. Like, I'm already looking at shit like a whole bunch of brown bodies are dead. So for me, it's real. I can look at it on that level, but some people it's gonna have to be, you know, somebody next door to them. It's gonna have to be one of their loved ones or whatever. And, you know, again, while we know the universe does what it does, to try to avoid shit, I don't think is a bad thing in this particular realm. Cause this, you know, this ain't a war. This is a disease. We can do our best to fight against a disease. You know what I mean? Like, if I have to go out in a horrible way, I'd rather be fighting for something good than because, you know, some white person ain't washed their hands because they want to own the lid or some stupid shit.
No doubt.
Or anybody, you know what I mean? I don't want, you know.
I've worked in food a lot of years in my life, and I just remember, or I was at a place where people were eating, and I remember just being in the bathroom how so many people didn't wash their hands. You know what I'm saying? Especially after taking shits. And you know, so in this time of cleanliness, that caught a lot of people off guard. You know, because they was used to whatever. You know, and you know, but I just wanted to just interject that real quick.
And to me, that's a whole other thing, right? Where I'm like, if you look at the basic stuff you're being, told to try to do, out of all the things to be able to be told to do for the majority of folks who have certain shit, this is not the hard shit. You know what I mean? Wash your hands, wash yourself, put on a mask. If this is your version of having your freedom being restrained, I don't know what to tell you. You're spoiled as fuck, dude. You're fucking spoiled. You know what I mean? If those three things are your hardship and you are not, homeless or in extreme poverty, then fuck you, yo. Real talk. What else can I say? Even in the realms of other diseases that have happened at various times. If that's your hardship, ew, you know what I mean? Also, side note, fuck all these people who are doing this price gouging right now. It's really disgusting. And, whatever. And, also, y'all don't gotta buy up the entire fucking store of toilet paper and paper towels. And whatnot. Yeah. I ain't saying that it ain't cool to have, but, some folks have been wilding out here, and it's really whack.
You know what I'm saying?
Even in my little area of Southern Maryland.
It's not to that point yet, God forbid it gets to that in most of our lifetimes, because when it gets to that'll be a time when women and children shouldn't go outside. Because, if people get to the point where shit starts breaking down, and I don't know, like the 80s movies where they shit so like Mad Max and Road War. I think that's a major drop off civilization. What if something was like that to happen? What would replace this would be a little bit different. Probably be more military, state oriented. Because I don't know if I want that either. But that's a down the road. Maybe, possibly. You know what I'm saying? Because I say that because as a researcher, I had read things related to situations like this and what's the possibility. I just remembered I ran into a black sister in the military about 3 weeks ago. And I was coming out of a post office and she had a vibe about it. And I said, hey, we started talking. And, because I figured she looked like she had been in the service for a while. So I said she had probably, if somebody didn't tell her something, she overheard somebody. Because people in the service got interesting stories to tell you. And when they got the heart to tell you. But she said that this was going to, this wasn't going to last. If this was, she thought, she spoke matter of factly about it. So I don't know if this was, her thoughts or what she knew. But that this was going to be ending, this wasn't going to last that long. Meaning, that long could mean 2 months. I think she said that she thought it was going to be into the summer, and that she said that this was the beginning of trying to introduce to people, a mandatory vaccine. Shouldn't nobody take nothing that they don't want to take, period. You know what I'm saying? So there is an idea on what's going on and how things are going that's floating around by people who are in the know. You know what I'm saying? And but when I saw this, I knew she had some information before I even spoke with her. And it was, so I was like, da. And because at first she was like standoffish, like, who is this nigga? So I was like, I'm apple in God's eye, so, you don't you do, whatever. And then, so then she had caught up back up to me. She's like, but what's I was like, okay. And, but yeah, so, there's just different, ideas and there's different things of, things, just whatever. What was beautiful about the electronic shit, though, is that we're able to do and entertain people. Big shout out to the people who can entertain people, DJs and all people who get on that platform to inspire people, infuse good energy, good vibes in the people. that's really what it's all about. And these times there will be people who are good people who are going to be more good people, who are going to be fortified good. And,
no doubt.
Those are the type of people that make the world go round. You know what I'm saying? And, unfortunately for people like Fusion and myself, those people a lot of times weren't only black. They were people from other places. They were people who weren't black. And, I've seen that my entire life. If I have to put, in a sense of situations when they came up, not just people I already knew, but situations I did not know people. You know what I'm saying? Obviously I had more good situations than black, but I've been blessed. There were some good situations with other races too, to give me a kind of balance and in my analysis of the world, where I'm at in it, you know what I'm saying? And so I definitely think we're gonna, we're beginning on the days of the new normal, and how this is gonna flow and function from now on, because people are gonna be paranoid after this. And like when they start whatever, there's still gonna be a level of paranoia, and that paranoia, a lot of that is gonna be directed towards people of color. And
it already is.
So if there was some, just like before then, this is like almost a rationale in people's own minds. I already didn't like them. I already didn't like sorry, that you're not black. I'm psychic. I picked up on some stuff already, like, okay, or like light skin, dark skin, like, there's like almost no end to the bull, it's more comical at the end of the day, because, at the end of the day, it's like whatever. I got true blue people in my corner. I had true blue people in my corner before I met her. So she was an addition, that really makes the world go round more than anything else. You know what I'm saying? And, we're here to learn something in this realm, in this dimension. And to get we're not here to accumulate anything. That's not the purpose of being in this world. That can be a choice of yours, but that's not the reason. Even the Bible don't say that. So people who say they believe in Jesus, they can't use the Bible as a reference to that what they accumulated was the reason or the rationale that God had them in this world, and it wasn't. It comes down to how you were to yourself and how you were to your fellow man. I think that for some of us, those are thoughts, those are everyday thoughts. But modern black people, at least in my limited lifetime, I think we're at the most spiritually low level. I constantly am hearing black people that don't even give a mention of it. Like, they don't have to me, but it's just like, I just remember when I was younger, I just would hear it more. And so, and just them saying it doesn't mean that it's there. But, it just came, to me as a child, it came from a place of sincerity. It just wasn't family. It's people in the street, so, just that conscious aspect, because that was, what are we going to do?
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. I don't know. We are definitely going to have a new normal for a minute before certain things transition back. I believe they are going to transition back. Like, with illness and sicknesses, things and situations pass. It's just a matter of how people are going to act societally afterwards. That's going to be the big thing, honestly. Like, you have certain diseases happen and, certain patterns that we have in terms of how we even look at the realm of cleanliness, that type of thing happens for a reason. Like, people are going to end up washing their hands for 20 seconds and doing other stuff or whatever. That's going to be a part of people's every day in the long run,
Right.
In terms of how others treat people, that's going to be a very big thing. Cause one thing I will say, it's kind of interesting that, the periods of time that, we grew up in or whatever, for people who are of the younger age equivalent from that time to this time, it's going to be fascinating seeing how people deal with it on a mental end, on a socioeconomic end, on, as we talked about, the solidarity in terms of like how they look at their fellow folks in terms of, if these cats are to have it together, we're going to definitely have to have our shit together to have society be better, because everything's supposed to get better in time, right? Regardless. And, I hope the younger folks who are dealing with the situation end up, being able to make it through and be okay and not be detrimentally damaged by it, if, that particular statement makes any kind of sense at all. And hopefully for those who maybe haven't had to deal with certain things in life, because, some people have never had to deal with certain shit beforehand. And I try to exercise kindness in terms of understanding it, even though there are time frames that it does honestly annoy me, but it is what it is. I hope some of these folks, come out of this with a little bit more empathy towards others. And, whatnot, because of having dealt with a situation where they didn't deal with a certain level of, discomfort or issues, and maybe even if it's just shit in terms of going to the store and not treating people who work at the store shitty, that's cool. On a grander level, everybody is a fucking worker who's not ultra rich. How your company treats you right now should be looked at majorly. Yeah. There's going to be some shit you may have to fight against. Like, I had a relatively decent situation and whatnot, even, getting some information relayed to me from my fellow coworkers while I haven't been at work. They've actually, in all honesty, I have never had issues with them, but they've been pretty stellar with this type of thing this time around, so I'm cool that that's happened, but I know other folks who are not dealing with that particular situation or whatever. Those who are unionized, some people have better situations in terms of unionship than others, if they even have one there, in terms of how one's being protected and paid and so forth. Like, it should almost be a requisite after this to be there, like, so what did your company do during the pandemic to help out your workers? Because if you were shitty towards your workers during this time, that's the only way that y'all are making money, like the rich people are making money, then that can mean a lot. You know what I mean? So, end of the day, I hope that, people get out of this as well as possible, health-wise, definitely, condolences, prayer, and strength to those who have had somebody pass away from this, and who may have somebody pass away from this. And for those who have been ill and, have gotten better, I hope that your health gets back to, the highest quality level as possible. And, again, man, at the end of the day, there's a lot that's going to change. I mean, you brought up the aspect of DJs and other folks using the net, and I'll just touch on that really quickly before we end up wrapping this up. On a selfish level, as a working creative on multiple levels, including DJing, a lot of us have had to get our shit together if it already wasn't together. And not just in terms of, the pushing forward in terms of gigs and stuff like that, but in terms of being able to get shit done fairly. Because if you think that these lounges, festivals, etc., are not going to try to lowball people on the economic end, once things reopen, that's naive. That's very, very naive because, the music industry and some parts of the entertainment industry are already notoriously exploitative if you don't push for your rights and shit, And, the way the technology and stuff has gone, even with this type of thing where I think it's cool that there is a good vibe that people can do, certain party situations and, just, a way that people can unite together electronically in this age is very, very good. We gotta look at the aspect of why some of this shit is imbalanced, because if we want to be really honest, certain things, in a best case scenario are gonna get popped in a certain way until the fall, right? The electronic thing, I'll throw it out there because I think people are already recognizing it. I'm not going to get too deep. But the electronic aspect of this is going to end up being a bigger thing than it was beforehand, even once events and stuff happen. To be able to find out the best means of distribution and the way that everybody can get paid fairly is going to be a major thing, whether you do stuff audio or video wise. We all got to figure out the best way of doing that before somebody else makes that decision. It's like how iTunes became a thing back in the day, right? Where, iTunes became the arbiter because other people weren't trying to take charge in terms of how the technology got in hand, in terms of how people get paid and distributed. And, while we have more ways of getting all kinds of entertainment, visual, audio, etc., a lot of us only have so much of a level of control in it. We're in another big sea change right now where people can have a chance at doing it, and we got to figure out that way so the average cat can eat. Because people who already have money, they're going to be able to access whatever the fuck they want, right? Like, I love the fact that D-Nice and all these other, DJs and producers, etc., have been able to do stuff through the Instagram Live with these battles and, mini parties and stuff like that. And, not have their shit taken down because of copyright or whatever. But for those who are less famous, they don't have that right now. We got to be like, why is that? Or the aspect of, talking to people from my connections, if they're like, hey, if there's a license, can we find a way in terms of how much it costs to get a license? Because, like how clubs have, licenses they have for asking or whatever, so cats can get their mechanical royalties or whatever. Why is it not that way for the internet right now? So we can get our thing off, show off our skills, but also the people who got their joints being rock get paid instead of being here like, yo, here's a copyright strike, you know what I mean? And, some new cats still might not be getting what they deserve from the top down, much less other stuff. But, everybody needs to unite in solidarity, but just a quick note for the entertainment cats. It's going to be extremely major later on because while there's going to be a flood of people who are happy that certain stuff is happening, just think about the promoters and other people before. If they weren't fair beforehand, they're probably not going to be fair now. And even for those cats who were fair beforehand, you're still a worker, you know what I mean? Being creative doesn't mean that you're not putting in the work of what you do. You should try to get the best that you can to go forth and make a living because, I personally know a lot of cats who, if their only means of making funds is this time of year with, let's say the DJing parties or weddings and stuff, they're kind of fucked right now. And even that type of thing has been kind of arbitrary. So, again, I hope folks get it together and stay strong and keep it together mentally as possible and all of that. And as the Black Hawk said, people have been through a lot worse, and this is not downing what's happening right now, but I just think human resiliency should be looked at as the big thing right now. We're going to make it through this. We just got to make sure what this is afterwards is going to be good. We got to make sure this new normal isn't going backwards.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's a mantra. I have to break guys. It is this mantra, like it says on the news channels. Stay safe. It's like almost like it's like soldiers marching. Stay safe. Stay strong. Stay home.
Wow. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, Mary wasn't doing a whole lot. She's like what? Big Mary Kane now. So you wasn't doing that anyway. You know what I'm saying? But I was just bugging,
yeah, I'm about to say we being wild goofy right now, but that's all right. It's all good. Because there's not a whole lot of us to talk about, so because Mary knows that I talk about, I get deep and sometimes I'll just go head deep, but she knows the goofy side. I don't want to say goofy, but comical side is there. You know what I'm saying? And, comical and goofy is cool as long as you aren't bugged about it.
But I mean, my brothers are like that. I kind of, so there were a lot of orators in my family. So performers or actors or musicians, and so that spark from a child, I realized that you should never extinguish it or protect that which a child has. And I mean, it's up to the person, the human being, it's for them to recognize that. Whereas you have a lot of people walking around whose soul been dislodged from their bodies. But they still function, eat, sleep, shit, you know, and that's why love and proper energy is what human beings need and civilizations need. Trauma, bad situations from bad people, bad parents raising kids, from them having, it just amazes me that the bullshit that you see parents publicly having grievances with their kids, public grievances with that, that's not what civilization is all about. There just needs to, I'm glad I came up around mature black folks, when as a kid, because, people are being scarred by the bad words and bad activities and bad choices of their elders, and this is just, I don't know, I'm pained by that every day, you know what I'm saying? There's some more, there's some trash people, raising kids. It's like, you trash. You making bad decisions, but everything is going to be cool, for the people who know what's right first and foremost. And at the end of the day, I'm just more worried about what's going to happen to the children. And the children and the righteous. Everybody else, whatever. Let me add on to that. The children, the righteous, and all the women that I like, and all the pretty women. After that, I'm good. It's because a sad, unfortunate thing, there's a lot of evil people walking around, and some evil people gotta go. Some people gotta go, and I don't believe that I'm in charge of facilitating that or making that happen. But the life force, Earth Core, the Most High, knows who needs to go and who don't need to go. So if that's just to happen, so be it. It's bad when your loved ones go, even because they might have been a sack of shit to other people, but to you they might have been good people. But something that will, because there's an equilibrium, there's a lack of equilibrium on this planet right now. Planets, the air, the water, the earth is being corrupted by man. Men and women don't get along no more. There's an imbalance. The Most High can just shake this joker and shake the people off like fleas. Let's hope that it doesn't come to that, and let's hope that the righteous and the children and everybody important can hang around for the purge, which doesn't consist of man, which consists of life force and the Most High, working through different channels to be able to have things happen. Man could be at the helm, but man is generated by that which is beyond third density, or that which is spirit, energy, whether it's distorted or whether it's loving. And, everything is going to be cool. But we thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you very much.
No doubt.
Very much. I will go smoke on the Dutch. Take them cold work clutch. Your memory was much. Folks have had enough. So I'm just bugging. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for that. We appreciate it. We definitely appreciation. All the people that listen to us, we're glad, because I'm psychic, so I know there's some people listening to me, listening to us, and then when I watch you, I can kind of peep the vibe without you saying my name, or without you saying us. But I appreciate that, because, this is what it's all about. The exchange of positive energy. That don't cost nothing from us. You know what I'm saying? And to make you better so you can get out of this prison planet. Anger, hate imprisons us. Bad vibes, bad intentions imprisons us into a zone that we're not supposed to be in or reincarnate back into. We're supposed to get out of that, resurrect ourselves out of that, and then go to the next level. That's the older version before the Christians changed it, or before the Muslims changed it, or the people before them, before they called themselves Muslims, the Christians changed it. So, basically be good to your fellow man and, you're not stuck. You know what I'm saying? And, because people, it's a lot of, I remember as a kid, testing people as a kid. Very few people won't take advantage when they think they can. Very few people will stand up, to a motherfucker. I mean, very few people will try to take advantage of people who they think will beat their ass. You have men saying something to women. Oh, that woman shouldn't have said that. But if that woman would have been with wrestler so-and-so wouldn't have said shit. Because most people ain't got it like that. They don't. So stay true, stay real. That's the vibration of the life force. And that's the best bet for you. Yes, y'all.
No doubt. And, yep. I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt. And definitely thanks to everybody who's listening into this, talk today from the FuseBox Radio crew. More shows and stuff will be coming at y'all soon, whether it's the mini mix joints people have been doing lately or, I guess at this juncture, since it's been about damn near shit. I think next month will be about 22 years I've been doing this show in some way, shape, or form. I guess the long shows that the damn near start calling FuseBox Classic episodes. And yeah, definitely thank y'all for supporting. FuseBoxRadio.com. As I always say, you don't gotta like or dig everything that we're saying, but if it sparks you to think a bit and give some thought and some other conversations, we've done our job as quality independent media and black media at large. And more tunes and stuff are coming. So FuseBox Radio, DJ Fusion, Raw Black Hawk about to roll out, alright?
Black Hawk, raw, all money. God is a no more. Kush, peace.
You can listen to the FuseBox Radio Broadcast via iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Podcast Addict, and your other favorite podcast players. Check out the FuseBox Radio's official website for our latest episodes, events, and more at FuseBoxRadioOnline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook at Facebook.com/FuseBox Radio Show, Twitter at Twitter.com/FuseBox Radio, and Instagram at Instagram.com/FuseBox Radio. Feel free to contact us at FuseBoxRadio@gmail.com to submit music for airplay consideration,